And thank you especially to Greg Cameron, and welcome to another episode of the Maz's Musings podcast. We are recording this live on YouTube, and you can also join us directly on Riverside. Yeah, and we are talking about the NFL draft and specifically about the New England Patriots and what their plans are for the draft and what we think we would do if we were the New England Patriots. Now, the last time that we did a draft kind of segment, it was a marathon. And
I believe it was 4.5 hours.
I
Does that
promise you,
sound right?
this is not going to be, yeah, it was like 4 hours. We ended up
No.
breaking it into like three different segments. It was pretty nuts.
Yeah.
So I can, all I can say is that this time we're going to rein it in quite a bit. So
So we hope.
we hope that's the plan anyway. So that's where we are with this. And Greg, before we get into anything else, I would love to be able to just let everybody know that you are really taking one for the team today. That we were not sure that this is going to happen. Somebody joked around with me on an earlier podcast when I was sick, and that was my flu game. This, I think, is much more. I don't know. Is this the flu game, or are we talking about the are we talking more about like Larry Bird, laying prone on the sideline,
Um,
because his back was, at that point, but he still wanted to play and represent the United States on that dream team.
Great question. I think it's probably a little bit of both, considering, first, Jordan's flu game. There is certainly quite a bit of talk and a great MJ Lenderman song that sort of leads credence to this potential rumor that it wasn't exactly the flu, that maybe it was a little bit of a hangover game. But then with the Bird comparison, I'll always take a Larry Bird comparison. So, you know, uh, a little bit of both. I had to kind of cut to the chase. I had tweaked my back a little bit earlier, moving some tables at work. So if I sound a little like wincy and winded, it's mostly just because I'm now an old man. It took until 37 and a half years old to get there. So yeah, I had tweaked my back a little bit, but thanks to Allagash White and some salon pass, which just saying that makes me sound like an old man. Uh, I'm here to be able to podcast today. I do this for the love of the game, and frankly, being able to do this while being a little bit back tweaked, like that hurt a little bit, but it didn't. I tried my best to sort of mask it, but I'm excited to do this podcast. It's a tradition unlike any other. Hopefully, we don't go on for a marathon like we did the last time. If it was an old VHS from our childhood, it absolutely would have been 2 tapes for sure. We would have had the nice like pop in tape, tape one while Celine Dion's "My Heart Will Go On" kind of leads us out towards the second half. But I'm very excited to do this. I've done some mock drafts. I've written my list of fun names at about each different position group. I'm pretty excited here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I'm glad that you were able to do that. I do realize that for some reason we were having some difficulties earlier. There are some people who are waiting in a different like waiting room for the stream. So I apologize to anybody who's waiting to get in. I would basically just say go back to our main page if you can somehow hear this, and then you'll be able to join us on the live stream. So anyway, with all that said, even if you're not listening to this live, this is going to be a great conversation. Very excited about it. And so I guess the first thing I wanted to do before we get into the draft talk, um, Greg, for our last podcast, you actually ended up launching a whole different segment of the podcast. The podcast was focused on bad sports movies that we love. and you brought up the Disney original movies, which I decided
Yes,
just fall into a completely different category. And
they
so I
do.
pulled Eileen in to help me out with those because
Mhm.
she's much more of an expert on those than I. But I wanted to give you the opportunity, if you wanted to. Were there any that you wanted to defend their honor?
Oh gosh. Well, I don't want to say that Brink is a bad sports movie. Any movie that has a team called Team Pup and Suds will automatically have my heart. Um, but Brink is a great one. I was thinking of, it's kind of this I think an underloved DCOM Disney Channel original movie for those in the know. One of the ones that I really love is a movie called Genius, and that stars kind of fairly big star now who was on Shameless about 10 plus years back, Emmy Rossum, as a figure skater who kind of falls in love with a kid who's a like one of those like genius savant kids who was like a 12-year-old in college. And this kid is like working on a nuclear reactor project at sort of a like, I assume it's probably the University of Chicago, something like that. And there's sort of some hockey elements, there's some figure skating elements to this movie, but absolutely as a sports movie, terrible sports movie. That's one that I love. There's Alley Cat Strike, which is a bowling movie. That's always a
Eileen
fun
did
one.
Eileen did talk about that. There's something about, the spin of the ball to pick up a 7-10 split, or
Yeah.
yeah. So
I want to say the main kid from Brink is in it. Granted, I have not memorized Eric Von Detten's IMDb page. I hate that that's a name that I just know and that I just have it
you just
committed to
pulled out
memory.
of
Like,
the air.
look, man, under this hat is a brain that has a lot of dumb stuff, like Eric Von Detten's filmography, for instance. But like that's a weird one. There's a motocross one called Motocrossed that is an interesting one. There was also some discussion on Blue Sky a few weeks ago, and this was picked up by one of my favorite podcasts, the Shutdown Fullcast, which is college football in general nonsense. But that discussion was, what is a sports movie, or what is a non-sports sports movie? And so basically kind of the premise, like this was a discussion that was going around Blue Sky. And one of the examples that they had given, they'd given quite a few, including, Pride and Prejudice is a sports movie. You're reaching towards that goal. There's some competitive elements there. One of the others was every Tom Cruise movie is a sports movie. I mean, just the amount of running that man does in a movie, it's an athletic achievement. So I kind of wanted to give you that question. Is there a movie that you love that isn't a sports movie, but certainly has that sports movie structure?
Oh boy. Right off the bat, kind of putting me on the spot. It's hard for me to come up with off this. Like that's a great question, and I wish that I had a good answer for you, like right off the bat here. But I'm not that quick on my toes, and so I don't want to fill this live stream with dead air. So,
Yeah.
but if something comes to me as we're talking, I may just like end up blurting something out in the middle,
Totally
like
fine.
round 4.
Totally fine. If we're ending up, talking about Dylan Sampson from the University of Tennessee or something, and then you just go, "Oh my God, it's Rogue One," and then like if I just hear you just shout like Rogue One, I'll just be like, "Okay, great, got it. We're back to the beginning."
It's not really it's not really a sports movie, though. I guess it's got that competitive element. But a movie that just came to mind was there's a Bobby Fischer movie with Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh yeah.
and there were like these two opposing coaches, that like
Mhm.
I forget who played, but basically it was the conventional coach, and then the Lawrence Fishburne character was this guy who played speed chess in the park, and so it was like
Oh yeah.
so there was this
Yeah.
whole so in terms of like a competitive movie that that has some of those sports elements to it, I would say that would be one that maybe would fit that bill. What was it called? Finding Bobby Fisher,
Or
something
Searching for
like
Bobby
that.
Fisher?
Searching for Bobby Fisher, yeah, something like that. But it was the movie wasn't about Bobby Fischer. It was about this kid who was like a chess phenom. But anyway, so that would be my
Anyway,
guess. All right.
yes.
So moving on to the Patriots here, we have a very unique situation here. I'm actually going to start with an admission that I was wrong about something.
Do tell.
I'm not I'm not saying I'm completely wrong, but one of the premises of my argument was wrong.
Okay.
I was wrong. So I argued that, and this was before the last game of the season. I argued that winning or losing that game was not going to be catastrophic for the New England Patriots. I still
Mhm.
don't think it's catastrophic. My argument, though, was that the top end of this draft was devoid of a lot of blue chip players. So before we got into like the real serious assessment of all of this, I kind of looked at it, and a lot of people agreed there wasn't the top end quarterback option. So I still don't think that they would have gotten a great package or some kind of haul for someone trying to trade up to take Cam Ward. They would have gotten something, and something's better than nothing for sure. But
Mhm.
so I didn't think that they were going to get much in the return, at least what other people seemed to think that they would get. And I
Mhm.
also felt like the quality of the player that you were going to get at 1 and at 4 was going to be comparable.
Fair.
As we've gone into this process, however, it's been clear that now, obviously, it's clear that the best player in this draft is not going number 1. The best quarterback
I
is
agree.
going number 1, and it's not even close. Like,
I agree.
but this is a 2-player draft, and the Patriots are drafting 4. You can
Yes.
still get a really good player at 4, but it's not one of those things where you have a it's not one of those things where you have like a slam dunk pick at 4, or
No, you
like
don't.
it's going to be the exact same kind of player that you were going to get if you were at 1 or 2. So,
The
yeah,
knock on this draft that I've heard is that it's not a superstar draft, it's a starter draft.
right.
And I
Exactly.
think if you're picking 4, that no one's going to be happy with what you do at 4. I think there are great options at 4, but they're not necessarily knock your socks off kind of options.
Right. Yeah. So I was wrong in my assessment that the top of this draft wouldn't have um, much difference from 1 to 4, 1 to 6, or whatever the scenarios were that
Mhm.
could have played out heading into that game. So I was wrong on that. I still think the premise that they were going to get some kind of haul. We always kind of overvalue these things, obviously, and we won't get into this, but um, you know, a lot of us, whether it's us as fans or people in the media, thought that um, Joe Milton was worth more, and we saw what they got for Joe Milton. That's the conversation I'm not willing to have today, because at the end of the day, we're talking about a backup quarterback. So,
Yeah.
That's where I am with that. We actually have a let's see if I can find it here. Do we have
Do we have a
someone from the
question?
chat? I'm trying to see if I can get there. I don't know. It's telling me that I have a new chat message.
Ooh, there's a
but I
thing in
can't-
the okay, live stream chat.
Oh, it says yes. We have we have. It says the Pats will get to address their biggest need at least. Now that
Interesting point,
else,
Pop. Interesting.
yes, that is. I'm not sure which one it is, but I know from the logo there that is. Those are my friends, Brian and or Matt from the Pop Culture Chats with Ryan and Matt podcast. Great listen. Lots of movie talk. Lots of sports talk. They just had an NBA episode that was a lot of fun. So shout out to you guys. Thanks
Thank you,
for
fellas.
chiming in. You could also, people can argue about what the Patriots' biggest need is as well. You know, are you talking receiver? Are you talking tackle? Are you talking edge?
Yeah.
So, I have
Are you talking linebacker?
Oh, it's
sneaky
Matt. Hi,
need
Matt.
for this team is hi, Matt. A sneaky need, potentially linebacker.
Yeah. But yeah, so the statement is correct, basically. Wherever you're looking, you're gonna get a player that addresses whatever you deem to be the need, unless they were to draft like corner or something like that. But that's a whole different thing. So how do we want to do this? Do we want to just go like right into our mock drafts, or did you want to talk about your philosophy heading into these drafts?
I mean, yeah, I can tell you. So I did a couple of drafts. I mean, I've been doing them a bunch to a point that, I should have counted since the season ended how many that I've done. I'm sure it's dozens and dozens. But the kind of the latest few that I liked, I did two. There are two that I really like, just based on two different schools of thought. I did one that was the stay and pick at 4, and then I did one that was trade back. I believe I traded back with the Chicago Bears. I know I did something to kind of help the Chicago Bears, which, I get it. I get it. They're a franchise, certainly in my house, that does get quite a bit of love. For those of you who don't know, my wife grew up in the Chicago area and still holding strong that that Hallis Hall will reclaim glory at some point. And so I did a trade back with the Bears in one, and I did a stick and pick at 4 for another that I liked. And I think a lot of the players that I like in this draft are players that are kind of in sort of day 2, early day 3, that are just sort of fun players that I think, again, this is a draft that is a starter draft. These are guys who are going to eventually play for you. Maybe there are going to be some surprisingly great guys. Maybe there aren't. But what I really like, I think, about the kind of the idea of this draft is that there are so many solid players that you can find in weird places and in weird points of the draft. So I've had some fun recently with some drafts. There have also been some that I've been like, all right, you can only take Will Campbell so many times at 4 and then sort of get a sense of what you're going to get at 38 and beyond.
Sure.
So, you try and figure out like other plays and other ways to go to sort of keep yourself interested in it. But that's sort of been my mock draft philosophy the last few weeks. How about you?
Yeah, no, I think that it's pretty much been the whole mantra of this being a starter draft is you have to make sure that you are drafting guys who are going to end up starting for you. That's the big. So this one, I feel like there's a lot of times where, and it does get boring. You are doing those scenarios that are a little bit more wild, but the need to hit on these picks is so high that I feel like I've been conservative a lot. When I've been doing this, like I've had a few weird ones, and then I've sent them over to you and said, "Hey, you want to see something weird?" And but and then you say, yeah, that's really effing weird, and then we move on, so we have our fun, and then we go back to get back to earth.
Look, I love
yeah.
the idea of Ashton Genty on the Patriots, but I don't know that that's what they should do. I get it. I get it.
I mean, there is the argument that the more Adonises you have on your team, the better off you're going to be. And that guy is just man. He's chiseled out.
He's a dude. To quote Steve Adazio,
thank you, Steve Adazio.
He's a dude.
Yes, that Vine was ahead of its time. Guys, you don't know what I'm talking about, you can still find it on the internet, but look up the old Vine, which Vine in and of itself was ahead of its time. I mean, you think about the things that blew a 28-3 lead. Vine is one of them. Skype was another. How did Skype not survive COVID?
How did Skype lose that lead to Zoom?
Oh man,
Zoom came out of nowhere. I get it. Yeah.
So anyway, we're getting off the rails here a little early to be getting off the rails. So
can you folks see how we did one of these in 4 hours?
Right. And that one, I think that we did kind of like keep it moving because we had to, but we went through every position group and had 3 favorites from each level. So
we were organized. We were verbose but organized.
Yeah. This one, I'm less organized, so I'll admit that.
Great.
So I, like you, I have a trade down, and the trade down one is pretty nuts. And I have
awesome.
the stick and pick. So
cool.
Which one would you rather I start off with?
Do you want to?
Because I'm starting off. It's my podcast. I'm starting off this time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You get first ups. Despite the fact that you're the home team, you get first ups. I think the best scenario for us is we do the ironed out, clean, expected drafts, and then we do the weird ones after.
Sounds good.
That sounds in character for us.
Yeah. All right. So let's get this thing started.
It's my favorite. Oh,
all right.
My heart.
So, if we're going straight up here, do we each go through our list or our draft individually? Like I'll go first and then you. I feel like that's easier than trying to switch back and forth per round.
Yeah.
All right. So, my straight up draft, I took Will Campbell at 4. I know you and I have some different opinions. You took wow, because I know that Membu has been you've been a fan of Membu, and we've had this back and forth about. It's a good conversation. I'm not I don't think that there's a wrong answer. It's just what people's preferences are. Do you want to go with the guy who's an outlier because of some physical limitations, but is still like a freak athlete?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you go with the guy who has the physical tools, but you're asking him to change positions, So, and like I said, I don't think that there's a right or wrong answers, so to speak. There are warts in both cases, and the sample size. Now, this is the argument to trade down, I suppose, if you can find a candidate, is the sample size of guys who have been successful, like at a high level in either of those categories at left tackle is not. Neither list is long.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so we both took Will Campbell. All right. So I pretty much had you penciled in for Membu, but
and I love Armand Membu. He's big, he's solid, he's a smart guy, high football character guy. I think if you're going to attack your needs and you attack tackle first at 4, pick kind of has to be the guy who played in the toughest league against the toughest edge rushers and comported himself well against that level of competition. You kind of have to take the top guy in that conference, despite the fact that Membu is probably the second best guy in that conference at tackle.
Yeah. Yeah. That
right.
And it does, it does come down to um, really experience as far as I'm concerned.
I
There's going
agree.
to be a far less of a learning curve for, at least in terms of like the mechanics of the position, for Will
For Campbell.
Campbell.
Yeah.
And he's a guy, his arms didn't suddenly get shorter. He's been playing with those arms,
Yeah.
forever. So um so I had Will Campbell at 4. At
Have
38.
you seen the video
Sorry.
of him squatting like 600 pounds and like winking to the camera?
Yeah.
It's sort of one of
He's
these where like
he
I
is
didn't think he had a personality, but then I saw that and I was like, oh, all right, cool. He gets it.
See, I have always thought that this is a guy who has some personality. Ever since he did that press conference, or not even a
Okay.
press conference, but he was talking to the press, and he was talking about the difference between being a lineman and like being like an edge rusher. And you get a sack a game and you're a Hall of Famer. You give up a sack a game and you're terrible. You're
Yeah.
working at Target or whatever he said. And it was just like, he's exuding a lot of the things that I think, when we were talking about the hiring of Mike Vrabel, you were big on the culture aspect. And
Totally.
if that holds true with what people have been saying about Mike Vrabel, then he's a character pick too. Now, you're not picking at 4 for character, but it's a nice selling point. And that's not to say that Membu's not a good character guy, but I've just seen more of that, I think, publicly from Will Campbell. All right, so
Yeah.
next at 38, I took Jalen Noel. Now,
So
early on in this process, I was big on Higgins, the other receiver, especially after he ran faster than you'd expect.
yeah.
But then I just keep thinking, this is a guy who can stretch the field up the seam, from the slot. He's not your typical like twitchy, quick but not fast slot. This guy,
Mhm.
this guy can take the top off the defense. He's basically, in a lot of ways, it's a bad comparison because of who this guy was, but like he can take the top off from the slot in a similar manner to like what Chris Hogan used to do, but he'll be able to do it at a much higher level, presumably.
Yeah.
And also, just running the short and intermediate routes, but you have to respect the fact that he can go deep on you as well. And I think with McDaniels and his use of the slot over the years, he fits better. I know this team still doesn't have like that big physical X, and that's why I was in love with Higgins at first. But the more and more that I've thought about it and listened to what other people have had to say about Jalen Noel, and I believe he was one of their 30 visits as well
He
for the
was.
Patriots. That I'm going with Noel, or Noel. Excuse me, it's pronounced Noel.
So when I said that this was a clean draft that I had done, I kind of lied to you. So I traded 38 to trade back into the first.
Oh, okay.
I made a deal with the Los Angeles Chargers. I called up old khaki pants Harbaugh over there, and I traded them 38, 77, and 144 for 22.
Okay.
And at 22, I took Matthew Golden, wide receiver, Texas. For a lot of the same reasons you took Jalen Noel. For a speedster, a burner that can, in the middle of the formation, can give the Patriots a guy who can be a touchdown maker, when he gets the ball and be able to use that speed.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about Isaiah Bond early on in this process, and his legal troubles aside, I always thought Golden was the better receiver of the two anyway. So to be able to kind of move back into the first round, to be able to get a pretty good wide receiver at 22, I made the move. The Chargers, they're a Harbaugh team, so I'm sure at 38 they probably took Josh Connerly or somebody like that.
No,
So
Josh Connerly is not gritty enough he's not gritty enough for Harbaugh.
he's a little too West Coast for Harbaugh. He
Yeah.
needs somebody who's gonna call a landscaper a lawnsman. Like Harbaugh used that term once. I think we've talked about this, that the Big Ten coaches did a thing. This is a really fun, dumb aside that I love talking every time it comes up. That the Big Ten coaches did a thing of like, if football doesn't exist, what are you doing for a job? And Harbaugh looks straight to camera like I'm about to now. A lawnsman. It's a word that I don't think makes sense or exists. So the lawnsman made a trade with me so I could get Matthew Golden at 22. What'd you do? And you did Noel at 38. So where are we going
at 38? So now I'm going down to 69, and I took Ozzie Trapillo, tackle, Boston College. He figures to be more of a right tackle. So there's your right tackle of the future. I know that we've talked about this is a starter draft. But this is an investment in your starting quarterback, for going forward. And let's face it, you've got an aging right tackle who probably runs the risk of not playing all 17 games. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at what? I mean, you're hoping that Caden Wallace is healthy and can figure it out, because he did neither of those things his first year. And I try not to criticize people for injuries because, injuries are injuries, but, he did not. It's hard once you've gotten off on that bad foot,
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, exactly. So Ozzie Trapillo, eventual right tackle for the Patriots.
I will tell you how my board. I also drafted Trapillo, but I drafted him at 106. Just how the board fell. That he fell to me at 106, so I took him at 106.
I've seen him falling further, and there were a couple of these where I was just like, guys, in previous drafts that I had done using what I used, they were falling further than what I've seen a lot of the quote unquote experts picking them at. So I tried to be a little bit more realistic with this. Like, there were a couple where like Noel and Higgins were both going like at the bottom of the third round. And I don't think either of them are
crazy talent.
So with my picks too, I tried to be as realistic as I thought based on what people, like I probably could have gotten Trapillo later had I waited.
Sure.
So 79, I had 77, and the Houston Texans called and offered me 79 and 166 for 77 and 2026 seventh rounder. So I traded with them. I traded back 2 spots, and I ended up drafting Barrett Carter, the linebacker from Clemson. I think he kind of fits the mold of the linebacker that they're going for. He's rangy. He's a little bit smaller than but he's a good coverage guy who, when he gets downhill, also can provide some thump. So I think that he's fitting that mold. I did, a lot of times I was trying to think, do they draft an actual thumper? Like there have been drafts like we've talked about, like trading back into the first round if Jihad
Campbell,
last name's escaping. Thank you, Campbell. Jeez,
Campbell.
Jihad Campbell is available there, at the end of the first round, and he's a bigger guy. He's athletic, but he's more of like I think, what is Jamie Collins a good comp in terms of like physical makeup of
Yeah.
size and athleticism. Not
Yeah.
necessarily the same player, but that blend of size and athleticism. Um, but Barrett Carter seems to fit what they're going for.
And a high character guy, high football IQ guy. Like that just sounds like the exact kind of player that Vrabel loves. A guy who loves the game and is a good person. As we talked in the last podcast that we did about how they're bringing in good people.
Yeah.
And this was before we had talked about the Stefon Diggs thing, which I don't think will be a problem ultimately. I think they kind of need somebody who's been around for these wide receivers to get a sense of, oh, this is what a top wide receiver at some point in their career is like. But I love Barrett Carter. Barrett Carter was on my list of like 3 guys at each position that I had done in case we wanted to go the Boston Marathon route, a couple days before the actual marathon. But he just seems like a guy that he screams a Vrabel guy to me. High football IQ guy, high character, just a good guy who's a good player. I love the pick of Barrett Carter.
All right, so the next one, I had 106. I took Jack Sawyer, the edge from Ohio State. He just feels like he feels like he fits this system culture. I mean, he just feels like a Mike Vrabel guy. It just seems
dare I say he a dude.
Yeah, it almost makes too much sense, I think,
Yeah.
So then jumping down to 144, I took our guy, Dylan Sampson, the running back from Tennessee. Now, this was one of those that I was like, okay, he's there at 144. I'm going to take him. I don't think he's going to make it that far, that far down. But some of these too, I'm just the player is kind of representative of this is where they might be looking to draft that position as well. So if it isn't Dylan Sampson, maybe it's the kid from Central Florida or something like that.
RJ Harvey.
Yeah. Who would be more of that scat back, pass catcher out of the backfield. But again, we're talking about McDaniel's offense, which has always kind of had that. And you can't say, like you have a guy on the roster right now who can catch the ball out of the backfield, but you wouldn't call him a scat back in any way.
No, not at that size. No way.
So 166, another guy who just feels like he feels like he's a Mike Vrabel kind of guy, captain, high motor kind of guy. And I think that he's going to be he has the potential to be an underrated, like a master of tackles. And that's Jack Kaiser, linebacker from Notre Dame. I think that he is a little bit overlooked here because I think that Notre Dame, outside of a couple positions, generally gets kind of overlooked in the draft. But you saw the level of competition that he played against this year, and the level that he played at in some of the biggest games. And I think that it spoke to what some of us who watch a lot of Notre Dame football have seen right along. 171. We got to address a long-term like interior line. So I took Jake Majors, the center out of Texas. Now I picked him. I picked him because he's a little safer, but McLaughlin out of Ohio State, I'd also be cool with that around this range. Like, he's coming off of injury, but this is the kind of range where you can throw those darts, So that's, again, this pick is more kind of representative of, what I think they might do in this situation. So whether it's Majors or McLaughlin or something like that, some kind of, you need a long-term center. I don't think it's on the roster right now.
No.
Unless you're really sold on Cole Strange. And if you're really sold on Cole Strange, then you wouldn't have hit the free agent market to bring in a guy to start for you this year.
Yeah.
All right.
I,
You got
I,
something to
I
say?
at 171, I'd see. Well, the other thing is the Bradbury of it, but also, would it shock you if the center of the future is Ben Brown?
Yes.
I wouldn't be shocked by it. Really?
Yes. I think that Ben Brown was a nice story and he filled in well for a couple of weeks, but then once teams kind of figured out what you could do with Ben Brown looked like a guy who, I mean, he held his own. He was fine. Like
Yeah.
he's a serviceable center. Like he's a guy that's not bad to have on your roster. I don't
Mhm.
think he's a long-term option as in terms of starting for you though.
Mhm. I will tell you, I have one other offensive lineman in this draft that I've taken as part of this one. But at 171, I took running back Jaden Blue from Texas, just a burner, just an
Yep.
absolute speedy burner, kind of scat back quality type of guy. But I think they're absolutely coming away with a running back in this draft. I
Yeah.
think we're hitting a
At
lot of the
least one.
same positions of like at least one. Yeah. And I think, I mean, because they've interviewed a handful. They did 30 visits with Harvey, with Sampson, with I think they met with Bayshell Tootin from Virginia Tech,
It's
who
on
had
my names
the
list, by the way.
on mine too, or was on mine, but then I want to just give a shout to Dane Brugler from The Athletic and for his publication of The Beast. The
Yes.
Beast is a cheat code for the name game. I just want to let you know.
All right. But yeah, like Jaden Blue is one of those guys who intrigues me. You know, he's just,
Yeah.
and especially there were certain guys that I like in this draft who I didn't
Mhm.
go with because I forget if it was at the owners' meetings or if it was more recently, but um, Robert Kraft specifically mentioned speed back
Yeah.
as one of the needs or one of the things that he hoped that they came away with. Speed back. So, you know, that you're looking at certain guys, you know, like when it comes to that. You know, there are some other good running backs in this draft. It's a pretty good running back draft. Um, but they don't all fit that. They don't all have that breakaway speed. So
I agree with that.
okay, so then I'm getting into my last picks here. 220, I took Curtis Rourke, quarterback from Indiana. You know, he's a look, he's going to be a seventh round pick. So, you know, make that what you will. He's not he's got some physical tools and everything like that. But really what it comes down to is this team's not going to go into camp with two quarterbacks. They're
No,
not. Like most of the time, even in you know early on, McDaniels likes to have four. So you burn a seventh round pick and you see what you have, you know, in in Rourke, and maybe he's a guy who you end up stashing on your practice squad or something like that, you know. And then I took another running back at 238, 328. That would be a long draft.
yeah,
At 238, Jaquavius Marks, who is just he's basically his job is to catch the ball
Woody.
out of the backfield. You know, that's his job. Catch the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah.
So that rounds out mine. So just to review, Will Campbell at 4, Jalen Noel at 38, Ozzie Trapillo at 69, Barrett Carter at 79 after a trade. Jack Sawyer at 106, Dylan Sampson at 144, Jack Kaiser at 166, Jake Majors, or you know, center interior lineman, you know,
Sure.
du jour at 171, Curtis Rourke at 220, and Jaquavius Marks at 238.
Okay, my final two picks at 220. I took tight end out of Syracuse, Oronde Gadsden II. Again, it was a weird board.
I saw that guy when they came to BC. That was a BC game that Eileen and I went to. The one BC game that we went to this year. Eileen being a Boston College graduate. I of course wore my Notre Dame hat just to piss everybody off. I was wearing. Eileen got me a very nice Boston College shirt, so I always wear that because I'm a good husband. But he caught in that game just this crazy, like super athletic touchdown that was just like, oh, like it was one of those eyebrow raising things, and he's an interesting player because he is kind of that tweener. He started out as a wide receiver, then they moved him to tight end. Where does he fit? Is he kind of like that? Man, I'm terrible with names today.
I can help.
The tight end who's not a tight end, who they use as a big slot in Buffalo. I could say all that, but I can't.
Dawson Knox.
No, Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid.
I had a 50-50 shot there.
Dalton Kincaid never lines up, on the line, but he's a tight end. So is it that kind of thing? He's not fast enough to really play wide receiver, especially with his body type, so where does he play? Interesting player, from a physical tools, very intriguing, but I just wonder where he fits in. He's someone that I think that McDaniels could have some fun with.
And McDaniels loves a guy who like I think of the Jack Nicholson line from The Departed of "What could I use you for?" And he sort of just like he loves guys who are just sort of like balls of clay that he can kind of mold into something. I kind of feel that way about a similar guy, kind of similar to Gadsden, that they already have in Jaheim Bell. I wonder if McDaniel sees Jaheim Bell as an even weirder, bigger project, but I had Gadsden there at 220, so I took him. And then at 238, I took probably, would it be fair to characterize that you and I have draft crushes that we find every year of guys who are a little funky, a little weird, who have either something weird about them or are from a weird school? Would you say that that's fair to say it's something that we share during draft season?
Absolutely.
At 238, I think I took this year's version of our weird late draft crush, somebody in the Dylan Labe Hall of Fame at this point. I took interior offensive lineman out of the University of North Carolina, Willie Lampkin.
I knew it.
This is the draft I sent you the other day that you sent a good Hamilton gif towards it too, because I had made a current events reference, but I love Lampkin. I had made the reference to you about Dan Klecko is sort of my thought with Willie Lampkin, of a guy who's a weird sized dude. He's 5'11", 280 something.
Yeah. He's 5'11". One thing lists him at 270. Now so basically it gives me hope. I could pack on 20 pounds and go play. Go play for the. Let's go.
Right? He seems like if the Patriots drafted him, I feel like there would be dudes in the parking lot at Gillette with Lampkin jerseys who'd be like, he's my guy. It's that guy plays for guys like me. Yeah. We're the same size, same shape. Willie Lampkin is me. I need a an advertising campaign, whether it's like a brewery or like a men's big and tall store that's just like Willie Lampkin is me. And I just feel like he's a guy you could move around. He could be your fullback in a McDaniels offense. He could just be something weird. Like it got to the point that with this draft, I was like, screw it. Let's just find guys who could be weird, fun projects. That's sort of what 7th rounders are. Like, you find somebody weird and fun. Once upon a time, Patriots drafted a quarterback out of Kent State who, they didn't need a quarterback and they turned him into one of the greatest slot receivers of all time. So this is where sort of the Patriots kind of live and breathe on, I don't know, could be something. Who knows?
I like it.
Yeah. So that was my clean draft.
You ready to get weird?
Yeah, man. I got to go into, right. I'm literally in our message thread, like trying to find ones that I've sent you that I'm just like, yeah, this is fun. This is weird.
All right. So I've got the 4th pick. We're contemplating bringing the card up to the table. Of course, they don't do that anymore. They don't. They everything's digital now. But we're getting there, and then the phone rings. It's the Jaguars. The Jaguars are offering picks number 5 and 36 for 4 and 69. So nice. I say yes.
Nice.
And they pick Will Campbell at 4. So
okay,
we're about ready to draft again, and the Raiders call. They offer 6. Weird. They offer 6, and their 2026 second rounder for pick number 5.
Okay,
and they take Tet McMillan.
Oh, it's like Al's not right? even dead. It's like Al's not even dead. I love it.
And
just win, baby.
With pick 6, I picked Armand Menbu.
Oh, he sees the light in a weird draft. He sees the light.
All right. So then, heading down the draft, I decide, you know what? I'm going to trade back into the first round.
Oh, hell yeah.
And so I offer 26 and New England's 2026 second rounder to Kansas City for picks 31 and Chicago's 4th rounder.
Okay.
And I take Luther Burden with that pick. You're talking about guys with juice and some inside-out versatility. Luther Burden is a guy that I love. He's got some. They're more maturity issues than they are character issues. But it feels like that's something that can be straightened out.
I was going to say, is it weird and bad that I feel like Stefon Diggs would see that kid and just be like, oh, I know what this is. I can iron this out.
Well, you would hope. All right, so we get into the second round. About to pick at 38, and Buffalo calls, offering 40 and 109 for 38 and a 2026 6th rounder. So I say yes. Buffalo takes Donovan Ezeraku from BC, the edge.
Yep.
Two spots later, I take Omarion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina.
Ooh.
Old friend of our franchise quarterback.
Trickman.
An underrated. Yep. I feel like, like the
he's good.
Hendersons, the Hendersons of the world are getting a lot more attention. I think that Hampton's flying a bit under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just looking for good players at this point. And based on what was available at 40 in terms of talent at that point, Hampton was the best player available. So I took best player available. Then I traded back up to 53. I offered Tampa Bay 77, Vegas is second, and New England's fourth next year for 53, and Tampa Bay's fourth rounder next year. And I took Femi. I'm going to mess this name up. I always do. Oladejo.
Edge from UCLA.
UCLA. Another guy who they had in for a visit. So, and really a guy who's kind of shot up boards over the past like month or so. So, guy I probably could have gotten a little bit later, but I really liked him. So I went up and got him. Then things calmed down. So I've picked at 6. I picked at 40. I picked at 53. And I picked at 31. So basically, I picked 4 times between the 6th pick and the 53rd pick.
Okay.
Then there's a break. I take Charles Grant, the lineman from William and Mary, at 106.
Small school guy that I love in this draft, by the way.
I got with the 109 that I got from Buffalo in the Buffalo trade. I took Jack Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
At 144, I took RJ Harvey, the running back from UCF, who we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
177, took Jack Kaiser. At 220, I just couldn't resist taking a tight end from Iowa. So I took Luke, is it Lachey? I'm
going to say Lachey.
But tight end from Iowa at 220. And then I took Curtis Rourke, quarterback, Indiana, at 238.
Okay. Okay. I've done a lot of weird drafts that I've sent you. I'm going to go with the latest one. So, beautiful. I'm sitting at 4. You know what? I just don't like what's in front of me. So I get a call here from Ryan Poles with the Chicago Bears, and he goes, Greg, it's time to make a trade. We want to trade up. We want to be able to get Ashton Genty. He's going to be our guy with Caleb Williams. What can we give you for 4? Well, Ryan, you can give me number 10. You can give me number 39. And you can give me pick number 95. So we make that deal. He also gives me the 2026 Kansas City third that they got for Joe Thuney. And I say, Ryan, pleasure. A pleasure doing business with you. So at 10, I take a guy who I think Mike Vrabel wishes this team didn't suck as much as they did last year, because he absolutely would have taken this guy at about 10. And that's Jalen Walker, linebacker from Georgia, who is, I've heard, compared to as a guy with Jamie Collins's athleticism at Dante Hightower's size. Does that not just sound like a weird toolsy guy that the Patriots traditionally and with Vrabel would just love to have?
It does. It sounds like a guy who in a certain unrealistic NFL draft movie may have gone first overall.
He feels very Vontae Mack no matter what. All right, R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. He's just a guy in this draft that I like. I just like Jalen Walker, and to be able to draft him like at 10. He just seems like one of those guys that would just be like, all right, this is the next great linebacker the New England Patriots have. He's a guy you can move him all over. Yeah. And like I've read kind of his like scouting reports that like he reads like a guy that Vrabel and Terrell Williams would be like, oh, I can use him somewhere. So I take Walker at 10. At 38, I take Josh Connerly Jr., offensive tackle from Oregon, who's another guy that I like in this draft. And then I have 39. I do not trade it. I keep it. And I take Mason Taylor, tight end from Louisiana State. Jason Taylor's kid who had a really clean, really awesome combine. I also think there's no way in hell he's there at 39. I think someone's going to get nuts in the first round and take him. Like I could see doing it. I could see the Los Angeles Rams doing it because they seem to need like tight ends that, they've lived off of the like Gerald Everett's of the world and like those types of tight ends where I think it's sort of time we're like, all right, enough screwing around. We're getting a first round tight end. And Mason Taylor would be that guy. At pick 69, I take Kyle Williams, wide receiver from Washington State, speedy guy who filled up the stat sheet like crazy for the Cougs the last couple of years. Kind of more of a smaller sort of burner type. But at 69, I took him to kind of take the wide receiver pick there. And then at 95 that I took from the Bears, I took Jordan Birch, edge from Oregon. I had made another trade at some point in this draft. I don't remember. I might have like the trade with the Bears might have just been a big weird one. I did not keep track of what I gave up or what I gave. When I sent it to you, it just had the little like, here's what you picked. So I took Jordan Birch, edge from Oregon. The Oregon team was kind of fun on both sides of the ball, and I felt like it was time to take an edge there. And then 11 picks later, I took at 106 Joshua Farmer, defensive tackle, Florida State. If you recall, one of the guys that I loved in last year's draft, who ended up being a pretty impactful rookie for the aforementioned Los Angeles Rams, was Braden Fisk, who I really loved. And Farmer has a lot of the same measurables. So I thought that Farmer would be a great pick at 106. 144, I took offensive tackle Anthony Belton from North Carolina State.
Yes.
NC State's another team that I watched during the college football season. They're well coached. Dave Doran's been there for like 16 years, and those teams they're not afraid of anybody. They go in, they play everybody as hard as they can. And Belton was just a really good offensive tackle for them. It had a really great Senior Bowl week too.
He feels like a guy who could like really make a really good career as a swing tackle, and he's got a little bit of that snarl to him that, you look for as that guy who you're putting in those, especially those jumbo sets and things like that as well. So good guy who can move some bodies downhill too.
A grittier Cam Fleming. And not to say that Cam Fleming is a bad football player. He's made a nice career playing certainly a hell of a lot of years in the league. And then at 171, I took my final pick in this draft. I took safety out of Iowa, Sebastian Castro. Name me a time when there's been an Iowa safety that hasn't been solid. I believe that's even the alma mater of one of my favorite defensive bowling balls, Bob Sanders. So I went with Castro at 171. That was my fun weird draft. I don't know. I just think Jalen Walker on this team would be fun. So yeah, that's my fun weird one.
All right, so any guys out there who you really like, who maybe, I don't know, there are some, it feels like
we're going to the list.
Mike Dussault from Patriots.com refers to this as the donut, like those guys who perhaps are falling like in the hole between your picks, there are some guys in this draft I'm just like, man, I would love that guy, but he's just not going to be there. Like, unless they do something nuts.
Mike Green from Marshall,
Yeah.
edge out of Marshall. He's one of those guys. I think he was a guy we mocked to each other back and forth at 38 a lot, but that Senior Bowl week and that combine, like, that guy's a first rounder. That's good. That's a 10, 12-year vet in the league who, like, granted, I don't know based on like size, size measurables or anything, but like feels to me like an Andre Carter type, just a guy who's just around the league forever, who just has like a nice 10, 12-year career.
I feel
He's
like
one of those guys that,
falls into that too.
yeah,
Like that same.
it's a very similar. Like, I think they're kind of both the Spider-Man meme of like pointing at each other of like, oh yeah, I'm you, you're me. He was the first guy that I had thought of. I feel like just based on the playoff performance, I think Cam Scatabo is going to be one of those guys who won't make it to where the Patriots draft. Someone's going to overdraft Cam Scatabo, who I love. He's got a concrete head, and he's just he runs like how Isaiah Pacheco runs. He runs as if the ground has done something horrible to him.
He's angry at the turf.
I love Cam Scatabo. He's a guy that I love in this draft. On my list of like guys at each position, he was my number one running back. I don't know that they're going to get him. I feel that way about Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren's a guy who would be one of Josh McDaniels' dream players.
Yeah,
because you can move him all over, but you take 4 as a bit of a reach. But he's a fun player.
You just stole one. That was one of the ones that was at the top of my list. Because for exactly right. And this is certainly not the draft where if you take somebody a little bit further back and you let them develop at tight end, well, that's okay because you've got a couple of veteran guys there. I don't know if you can, I for all of his talent, a lot of what he does was he was just overpowering guys, and is he going to be able to do that at the next level? Now, maybe early on it's more matchup based and you're trying to get him up against the smaller up against the safeties and stuff like that, because so that you don't have him trying to tangle with linebackers right off the bat. But it just feels like a rich pick for a guy who is going to have to figure it out a little bit. He's not Gronk. Now nobody knew that Gronk was Gronk when when the Patriots drafted him either, but he's not going to be able to bully guys in the NFL the way that he did some in college. I think that he's got the tools to adapt his game to be a really, really good weapon for a team, but I think that's going to take time. And the Patriots just don't have that luxury. I don't think. They need to make these picks count with guys who are filling more immediate needs. He's the performance part in the car. Right now, you're still trying to install the exhaust system.
He would be the turbo on a Volvo 850. He would be, as someone who owned a Volvo 850 that had a turbo. The car had no business having a turbo in it. But he's like the hood ornament, and that isn't to say that he's a bad football player, but on this team, he would be a bit of a decoration piece.
Yeah. Another guy that I like, and I don't think that the Patriots are going to be in any position to take him. He's kind of kind of a forgotten man a little bit, because I feel like we've been talking about him in draft talk forever, is Torrey Horton out of Colorado State.
Yeah.
Obviously this year was not a great, this year did not go great for him. So I think that he's gonna fall like in that donut, so to
Mhm.
speak. But he's a guy who just like, he's a good route runner. He's a guy who's got some special teams experience and can do some, contribute as a returner. He's uh I think he's kind of I think he's bigger than him, but like kind of similar in terms of like the smoothness that like a Kendrick Bourne has, you know.
Mhm.
Now Kendrick Bourne's issue is he doesn't necessarily pay attention to what his route is supposed to be, so he looks
Mhm.
smooth while he's doing it, but when he cuts it off at 7 yards instead of 9, it looks good until the ball's over his head. But anyway, that's a separate conversation. So he's one of those guys who I think falls into that. That would be a nice like down the draft piece for them to pick, but it's just not going to be there for him. I
Mhm.
also think about
Yeah.
like I also think about like a guy like Dante Thornton, who's just like one of those athletic freak kind of guys. I mean, I
Mhm.
kind of think of Cordarrelle Patterson.
Yeah.
Like
You
he
don't know what he is.
just get the
He's one of
ball in his
these. He's a
hands and see what he
corkscrew.
does. So but those are both guys that I don't think that they're going to be. They're going to be in a position to take, and they're not guys that I think that you'd make a move to go get either. There's some team is going to be like, oh, hey, this guy's here. Yeah, that works. I like him, and they're going to end up with probably, I would say between the two, um, Thornton's more of the wild card. Um,
Mhm.
I think that so whoever ends up with Horton's going to be happy with getting a good, solid NFL player, provided he can stay healthy.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised there's a name that you didn't put in, and that's Xavier Watts, safety out of Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Because he
I
seems
mean,
like a tweener between the first and second, and
yeah,
I don't know that the Patriots are going to take a safety at 38.
yeah. Well, right, and
You know?
I don't think they have room in that room. I as it is,
Yeah.
I'm looking at who they've got in that room, and it's just like, okay, are you looking at Epps being
Yeah.
that occasional uh, center fielder? Because depending on how they play, they may not need that guy all the time. Or of
Yeah.
course, if they run it like Vrabel used to run it, they need a Baird or someone who plays out there in center field all the time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't think that that's a really good one. I hadn't thought of that because he's been. I came to grips with the fact that they weren't, because early on I was mocking him.
At
I shared
38.
several mocks where he was,
Yeah.
but then I had the come to Jesus moment where I realized that he was not in the cards for the Patriots. I went through the different stages of grief, and thank you. I had actually built up mental walls and to protect myself emotionally, and now they've come
Mhm.
tumbling down. And well, I blame you for the state that I'm going to be in from now until the end of the NFL draft now, or at least the first two rounds, because he's not going to fall beyond the second round. I don't think. He didn't test great,
He
but
didn't.
um I think he's one of those guys who his play speed and his um, instincts make up for a lot
Mhm.
of what doesn't exist, on the track.
Mhm. I will give you one more on the defensive side of the ball, and that's Walter Nolan, defensive
Yeah,
tackle from Ole Miss.
that's a
I,
good one.
he just seems like he's gonna be a first rounder. Like, does he not seem like the guy who the Eagles are gonna draft at 32 to be like, hey, congratulations, you're now the Milton Williams
Yeah, exactly.
replacement.
It's just reloading.
Yeah, he seems like just a guy that Howie Roseman would just be like, cool, awesome, come on over. Um,
uh,
I don't lit. I One of my favorite bits during draft season, and I know that we both don't really quite quite like him, like them, but Felger and Maz every year they do their big board where they just open the Lindy's guide and have footballs with markers on them, and they just throw them at the board. And last night's was like defensive ends and defensive tackles, and Walter Nolan came up as one of them. And Tony Maserati was like, his name is Walter Nolan. What is he, 45? And then they read the scouting report and he goes, my God, I love him. And like, I just think that like, if he was a Patriot, he would be one of those guys that like Patriots fans are just like, oh no, he's really good. He's fun. He's mean on the field. Yeah. Like he would be a perfect Patriot. But again, they're not going to be able to probably get him at 38. And I don't know that you take a defensive tackle at 38.
Well, I think that one thing that really muddies the Patriots in terms of the defensive line is just the uncertainty with Christian Barmore. You know, it kind of looms over everything. Like, do you take a guy because you don't want to pin yourself to hope, and then you have this weird rotation if he if Barmore's fine? Well, I don't, I think that based on that that's a pick that you make if you don't have the need,
if he's not available.
Patriots have. And I mean, the Patriots have lots of needs because they are picking at 4. So, all right. So let's get into some names here. All right. Of course, last year when we did this, we were sure to honor the legendary sports columnist from several iterations of the local daily paper, whether it was the Springfield Union News, the Union News / Sunday Republican / the Republican. Gary Brown, one of the prides of Springfield, one of the great guys that you'll ever meet, and just a font of knowledge and just a historical encyclopedia, both of local sports and the sports world in general. So we love
and
you,
a lovely
Gary.
guy to boot.
Oh, just the best. He and his wife both just were outstanding people. He got an honor once, and I, working for the paper, went and interviewed. Oh, it was when he published his book. His book, he published his book, and he got some kind of recognition for the book. So, and he invited me into his home. He and his wife were just like the most hospitable couple. They're so sweet. I have a signed copy of that book that is one of those things that you just hold on to and you cherish. So great guy. And one of the things that he would do with his column was he would name the best sports names. He would say, add so and so to the list of favorite sports names. And every so often, Greg and I will see a name and we'll text each other and send each other a message saying, add so and so to the list of favorite sports names.
Our friend Jason Remillard and I, when we both were in the office, when we worked together in the office, this is about 10, 11, 12 years ago, something like that. We would read names like from like wire copy stuff, and we would just, because we would email them back and forth to each other, and I would see his bespectacled face just kind of look over the bank of monitors in the old Republican newsroom on Main Street, and he would look at me and just go, and would like nod. He'd go, and so like, I love that this is a tradition that we now do just to sort of kind of keep the hitting to all fields, which was what, the Wednesday or Thursday column. I think it was Wednesday, in the middle of the week, I think.
Yeah. I can't remember if it was Wednesday or Thursday. Thursday would have made sense because it was like the big paper, outside of Sunday. But I don't.
Yeah.
Don't remember now. By the way, shouting out Jason Remillard. I just wanted to shout out that that he actually figured out how many goalies who spent time in Springfield's playing AHL hockey in Springfield had given up a goal to Alex Ovechkin. The number is 14, by the way. So shout out to Jason for doing that legwork, doing that homework for us.
I love Jason. He's one of my absolute favorites. That was when you told me that was the most. Of course, Jason Remillard had done this. It was so not out of character for him, and hopefully he listens to this, and hopefully he's doing well. Last I checked in with him, he was up at the Greenfield Recorder.
Yep.
Another alma mater of another buddy of ours, of Kyle Belanger.
Yes,
he's now out in Kansas, but So no, you go.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I was sort of just gonna wrap this up and just like, this is a very long-winded way to say that this idea of fun names in this draft is so not ours. It is an idea that we have stolen from somebody who we've read forever, and we hope these are names that could make that list.
Yeah. And Jason, it's been 7 years since he left the Republican. And I think on top of everything else, the NASCAR fans in this area really miss having Jason writing about NASCAR. And honestly, that's certainly a love of his, and something that you need some really specialized knowledge for, I think, to do it well, and something that he did really, really well. So anyway, we're running long. So wow, we're running long. There's a shock.
Matt should have said something to us in the chat. He should have tried to keep us on task here.
He might be asleep at this point. But yeah, so let's get into some names. Who go ahead. Well, I'll let you start this since I started the draft. So,
all right, I will give. So I did this not knowing what we were going to do. I did them. So I did what I prepared last year of doing 3 at each position group, and then a fun name. Do you want me to just go position group, each name?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. At quarterback, I have a quarterback from the University of Tennessee, Martin, and that is Kincaid Dent.
You stole mine.
Did I really? No. Is part of why you love it the spelling of it?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Kincaid Dent is spelled Kinkaead Dent. It just seems like Harvey Dent's like football throwing brother. So Kincaid Dent, UT Martin.
Oh, I don't know if I'm disappointed or excited by the fact that we're already 1 for 1 on having the same thing.
I mean, yeah. All right. At running back, I have a running back from Ole Miss, from the University of Mississippi, Ulysses Bentley IV. Just Ulysses Bentley IV just sounds like somebody who would have been, marooned on the capsizing of the SS Minnow, and would have been a wash ashore with Marianne and Ginger and Gilligan and the skipper. So Ulysses Bentley IV is my fun running back name. So
I'm just going to go with mine. I'll bounce off of yours. So originally I had Bashal Tutin, but I figured that you would have him. And somebody, I was listening to Tom Curran's podcast, and he had somebody on who was just like, who was calling him King Tutin. So
he's a good football player too. Like, he's got a fun name and he's good.
Yeah. Yep. So I picked another one from Central Arkansas, Shunderick Powell, and
Oh, fun.
it's SSHU and then capital D, Derek with 2 R's, ICK, Powell, and Shunderick is one word, one name.
Oh, beautiful. Chef's kiss. At wide receiver, I have Moochie Dixon, wide receiver from Southern Methodist University.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
Not enough Moochies.
So I had from Pittsburgh, Kanata Mumpfield.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, he's
Mumpfield's just fun to say and fun to like visually fun.
Right. Yeah. I don't think he's gonna get drafted though. The senior, the 5'11" senior who ran a 4.59, probably not on many draft big boards.
But maybe he's a fun UFL guy who gets a shot somewhere else.
I did have another one for wide receivers. The kid out of Arkansas, Isaac Tesla.
Yes. It depends on the syllable in that one.
Right. Yeah. Which the emphasis on which syllable. Yes. But that was another one that I like because, it was like, that seems to be the consensus because it is the AA at the end. So you're kind of
Tesla.
Exactly. You're drawing out the ah, but yeah. So that was the runner up for me there. But I think yours takes the cake there, man. That's a great name.
Moochie Dixon. Like, doesn't that just sound like a guy who would have been a wide receiver on like, I don't know, the 68 Patriots or something? And probably they would have taken like, we'll take Moochie Dixon out of Southern Methodist.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about Dixon? I love the name.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. I will tell you. So I'm going to go to tight end here.
Yep.
I think it's a little too obvious to say Colston Loveland. It's a little too obvious, and he's a first-round talent.
Right.
So I went very much off board here. Okay. I went with a tight end out of Auburn, Rivaldo Fairweather.
You stole mine again.
Did I really? I'm trying not to laugh too hard. It does sort of hurt on one side. But how fun is it just to say Rivaldo? It's
right.
It's the elf thing of Francisco. That's fun to say. So Rivaldo, that's fun to say.
Oh, that's great. There's some good names, especially for tight ends. Moliki Matavayo.
UCLA, correct?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one. Let me go back into the beast here. Hold on. Pulling it back up.
We've got, I think last year one of the ones that I pulled out was Gavin Bartholomew, which just sounds like, a character from a Jane Austen novel.
Yeah, and he's back in the draft this year. He's out of Pitt. He was a guy who went back to school. All right, let's see for some fun ones. I'm looking here. Let's see here. Steve-O Klotz.
Right.
I don't know if it's Steve-O or Stevo, but either way, kind of great. Let me see if I can find one more weird, fun tight end name. I got one out of Syracuse. Maximilian Mang.
That is a good one.
That's awesome. All right.
So I'm. Oh man. Way
keep saying
down.
Fun names.
There's from the international program. Oh man, okay. I'm gonna butcher this name. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it phonetically, and I'm sure that it's wrong. This is the international program.
Yeah.
Australia. Laita Makadriki.
Cool.
Yeah.
I can picture how it's spelled. Cool.
he's
All right.
he's in the Beast. He's like 58 or so. Yeah, 58 in the
58.
Beast.
Okay, hold on. Let me go back to the Beast. Again, shouts to Dane Brugler
No kidding.
for the
Well,
Beast.
I mean, national treasure.
Laisha Mosadrik. Okay. Sure. I'm sure it sounds way more fun in an Australian accent.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I will give one more as I'm looking in the Beast here for tight ends. Anthony Landfear. Landfear is a fun last name. I'm assuming it's Landfear. He's a kid out of Rhode Island. All right. Offensive tackle.
Yes.
Offensive tackle. So we talked about this before we came on here. And because again, I'm a guest in your house here. I'm merely a house guest. I'm very much Jazzy Jeff to your Fresh Prince at this point. And one of them that I had seen you had not chosen. So I'd written down a second one. But do you want me to say them both? I should I say both of the ones? Okay.
Go for it.
The one that I thought that you would absolutely have caught is an offensive tackle out of UNLV named Tiger Shanks.
That is a great one.
Tiger Shanks, and then another tackle out of Delaware, Blaze Sparks.
Wow.
I feel like those would be two that Gary Brown would have seen and would have just been like, screw it, they're both going on the list.
Tiger Shanks. That's a great one.
That's a great
Man.
one.
Yeah.
And I thought Blaze Sparks is good. I like.
Oh yeah.
They're two words involving fire at the same point. Blaze Sparks, pretty good.
I honestly didn't get for that far down the list. I found a Johnny Cornelius out of Oregon, and that one, that's a fun name.
It's a fun Cornelius, fun to say.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Interior offensive lineman. I went with sort of a just one because it just seems like a name that, people don't name their sons this. I went with out of Penn State, Sal Wormley. Sal Wormley. Sal Wormley seems like he would be a vendor on Diagon Alley in the Harry Potter series. Like it'd be like Mr. Wormley's like potion warehouse or something. So Sal Wormley is my interior offensive lineman for this.
All right. So I've got out of South Carolina, Torricelli Simpkins III.
He was on my long list because I just like the name Torricelli.
Oh yeah.
But like you think that it's going to be like Torricelli Constantino or something, but then it goes Simpkins III.
Yeah. Can
it takes
I also say I don't truly understand the players who are the young players who put like so and so senior on the back of it's just like nobody's confusing you for your kid who's in middle school
or in kindergarten. Yeah, no one is.
Right.
No. I know. I'm looking at the list of guards here that are some honorable mentions here. Javontes Spraggins is fun out of Tennessee. Rush Reimer out of Cal.
Kid out of Colgate. Bardial Gashi.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. I'll try and find one more guard. Oh yeah, I see Bardial Gashi. Right. You know what? I'm gonna go to centers because I didn't do centers specific here. Gus Hartwig from Purdue. Fun name.
It just feels like such a Purdue name.
It's such a corn-fed like meat and potatoes Big Ten name.
Kid out of Maryland for centers. Josh Kaltenberger.
That's a good one. Um, let's see here. Let's find one that's fun and
Logan,
not.
Northern Illinois. Logan Zhersnitz.
I saw that with the Z's. I was like, ooh, the Z's are fun.
And
I have one out of Central Michigan. Dominic Serapelia III.
all right. No
Very
more callers.
Italian.
We have a winner.
All right.
So did you do edge or did you just do defensive line?
I did edge. Yeah, I did edge and I did defensive tackles. So I did edge. My edge fun name was Bam Brema from Pitt. I like a good alliterative name.
One. Yeah. Alliteration is always awesome.
Always. So I had as our anteaters.
I had out of Georgia, Chaz Chambliss.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a
Chaz.
good one.
You just don't see Chaz very much anymore.
You don't. I like that we both didn't do Princely Humanimelian. Princely is great. Yeah. Let's see. I see Chaz Chambliss. Chico Bennett Jr. from UVA. You don't see many Chicos. Let's see. Nobody else I quite missed. We'll stay on the defensive line, I suppose. I did defensive tackle. The one that I chose was Nash Hutmacher, defensive tackle out of Nebraska.
Yeah. He was on my short list.
Okay.
But then I saw also another guy out of Maryland, Tommy Akingbesote.
Ooh, that's fun. I see him there at number 42. Let's see if there are some other.
Also, Javari Ritzy is just a fun name. Like
Ritzy is a really fun last name. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Putting on the Ritzy.
True Thompson, a defensive tackle from Jackson State, spelled TRU. That's kind of fun. All right. I think I might have missed a guy. And he's number 85 in the Beast at defensive tackle. He's a defensive tackle out of Boise State. His name is Herbert Gums.
Bravo.
It's just, again, there aren't many Herberts around.
Yeah.
So, but then with the last name Gums, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
All right. I then went to linebackers. The one that I chose was Ruben Hippolyte II from Maryland.
You got me again.
First off, Ruben, awesome name.
Oh yeah,
Hippolyte, masterful,
and for good measure, the second.
Yeah. Oh my God, and he's got Roman numerals, like
right.
What can't he do?
I also liked out of North Carolina, Power Eccles.
And I didn't choose him because I knew, because you and I talked about, we're like, what a name.
Oh yeah,
Power Eccles.
I mocked him a few times just because of the name, just mocked him late.
I will say I also enjoyed Bam Martin Scott out of South Carolina. And I just thought that it's weird that there's a player in there named Kareen Reed, because when you first read it, you think of a trial that has gripped the Bay State when you first read it. For linebackers, those are pretty good. Marlo Wax out of Syracuse is fun. Let's see if there's one more. Let's see. Where's a fun one? Yeah, I'm going to stick with those.
All
Or
right.
Zach
Sounds good.
Zemos. Zach Zemos out of Louisiana Tech. Love a good double Z.
All right. I'm gonna jump into cornerbacks, and I'm gonna
Great.
jump on this one. It's got to be the kid out of Kansas, Kobe Bryant.
That's a good one. Oh my God. I have two. And Kobe Bryant's not one of them.
Oh, all right.
I have out of Western Kentucky, Upton Stout. And I have out of Rutgers, Robert Longerbeam.
Nice.
Just two fun ones.
The other one that I had out of because I was convinced that you were going to take mine on that one. As South Carolina, O'Donnell Fortune.
Oh, what a good one. O'Donnell Fortune's a fun one.
I mean, anytime you either have two first names or two last names, I think that's
mm-hmm.
That's a home.
I think another fun one here is out of Florida State, Fentrell Cypress II.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's a name that sounds like a species of tree. Let's see here. Number 60 in the Beast here, out of Ohio University, Roman Parody. That's a good one. And then all right. And then a corner out of Notre Dame, number 88, Rod Hurd II. Not many rods left. So, yeah.
Not many rods left.
All right. Where are you going next?
Let's stick with the corner or with the defensive back. So let's go safety.
I have Major Burns from Louisiana State. It's a great name. You like it.
I feel like I was a little too okay. So I'm gonna go with Kentucky, Zion Childress. That was my backup.
That's a good one. There was also another major that I liked out of Carson Newman. If anybody can tell us where Carson Newman is, there was Major Williams. That was a good one.
I mean, you can't. I mean, Shiloh Sanders is a fun one. I mean, how many Shilohs do you see these days?
Not many. I recall reading the book Shiloh as a child. Broke my heart forever. That's a great one. I like that we're looking through this list. Like it's one of the best things about the draft. Oh, Flip Dixon, safety out of Rutgers. That's
Alakai
a great
Gilman
one.
out of Utah, also in that same vicinity of the list.
That's Max Hurlman, a safety out of Notre Dame. Hurlman is just a fun last name.
Jalen Jimerson out of Sam Houston.
Ooh, that's a good one. I have one out of Michigan State, Angelo Gross. I think of a great Joe Castiglione clip when Gabe Gross had come up in a game at one point, and he had said, "The right fielder is Gross. That's his name, not a judgment about him." And I just feel like it's spelled Grose, but I just think it's just so much fun. I like last names that are also like other words. It's fun. Kobe Savage out of Oregon's another one that's fun. Yeah. Kobe Savage.
All right. So we are pushing 2 hours here.
We are.
So I did have one specialist each, kicker and punter. As far as punters go, Alex Mastromano.
Ooh, fun.
Mastromano out of Florida
That's very
State.
good. It's very Italian.
As far as kickers go, Dragon Kessick out of Minnesota.
That was the one that I would have thought of. I didn't do specialists. I'll give you a couple that I like here. Looking here in the beast, Tyler Loop. Loop's a fun last name where it's spelled Loop. That's fun. And then a specialist out of Temple, Maddox Trujillo.
Yeah.
It's weird that we're now seeing people named spelling wise after crafty right-handers who somehow won 300 games. So, yeah. I think this is a very good list that is worthy of the Gary Brown seal of approval.
Oh, wow. Now I'm not going to attempt to spell this. I just happened to scroll down. I didn't realize that long snappers were actually included in this list.
Is this in the beat? Oh my god! Oh my god! I didn't even go. Oh, this
kid from Colorado Mines. What, the College of the Mines in Colorado?
Yes, in Golden, Colorado. I was just there.
Right. If you want to take a stab at this, but it's Josh, and then probably the most Polish name I could ever come up with, WOJCIECHOWICZ.
I'm going to say Wojciech.
That's a great guess.
I'm going to say Wojciech. A long snapper that I would like to give is Neeland Hibbett out of Alabama. That just sounds like an old money kind of name. I love it.
Oh yeah,
Neeland. Yeah. All right, this is
all
fun.
Right, sir. Yes, this was fun. We are pushing 2 hours, which I think is testing everybody's listening capacity, and certainly my wife's ability to stay up, because I just heard her go up to bed. So
okay.
So yeah, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate. We'll have to do something after the draft to kind of recoup, and hopefully by that time the Red Sox have recuperated and figured out what they are. That's a whole different subject that we don't have the time to get into right now. But I appreciate.
And maybe by then the Bruins have a new coach. They're third in the calendar year.
Yeah. Well, that seems almost inevitable because the changes aren't coming to the front office. So
it won't.
No. So with all that, but we're being positive here. We're being positive because this is going to be a great draft. The Patriots are going to fill some needs with some good starting caliber players and really lay the foundation. And then, once they've got this car put together, they'll be able to, to install the NOS and, get the custom paint job, and that will be ready to roll. But
are you saying they're going to be fast and furious?
If you want to take it that way, go right ahead.
Great.
All right, sir. Thanks a lot. You have a good night.
Thank you, Chris.